After rubbing shoulders with writers and poets such as Pablo Neruda and Jorge Luis Borges, in 1944, María Luisa Bombal left Chile, turning the page on a tragic chapter in her life, where obsession led her to attempt to kill the one she once loved. In 1931, 21-year-old María Luisa Bombal, who had lived much of her life in France, returned to Chile and met 28-year-old Eulogio Sánchez, a pioneer of civil aviation and a man of fortune. Immediately, the spark of passion ignited between the two, but their romance was destined to fail. When Eulogio distanced himself from María Luisa, the young woman refused to let him go. Letter after letter, she waited for a response. Devastated by the indifference of the one she adored, one night, at a social gathering in Eulogio's apartment, María Luisa searched his closet, and after finding a gun, she shot herself. The future writer survived and traveled to Argentina to recover at the invitation of her friend Pablo Neruda. Still, failure and loneliness haunted her. In 1941, María Luisa returned to Chile, heartbroken again, and the memories of a frustrated love returned to overwhelm her. On January 21, 1941, María Luisa calmly walked through the streets of downtown Santiago de Chile until she reached the gates of the Hotel Crillon. There she waited, and after a very heated argument, María Luisa fired her gun at him. Eulogio survived with a wound in his arm, while Miss Bombal ended up in jail. After a short time, Eulogio forgave his aggressor. María Luisa was acquitted of the assassination attempt and left for the United States. When asked why she had attacked Sánchez, she replied, "By killing him, I killed my bad luck. I killed my jinx." Hello, dear listeners of Tres Cuentos, the bilingual podcast dedicated to the literary, historical, and traditional narratives of Latin America. I am Carolina Quiroga Stoltz, and today we welcome the only lady fantasy writer of the season, the passionate Chilean María Luisa Bombal. I discovered María Luisa Bombal in that book that has been like the flight log of this season, Antología del Cuento Fantástico Hispanoamericano, Anthology of the Hispanic American Fantasy Short Story, edited by Oscar Hahn. She's the only woman writer anthologized in that book. The tale selected to show her genius was The New Islands, a story that was first included in the Anthology of Fantastic Literature published by Borges, Bioy Casares, and Silvina Ocampo in 1940. Even though it is an absorbing tale, the note I made in the corner of page 166 was, "I don't understand it. It reads like a bad dream. It's kind of confusing." Determined that I should give the Chilean writer another chance, I kept looking. On the internet, I found several references to a story by her entitled The Tree. I read it, and I liked it a lot. But since it was so long, I decided on one that was shorter, but just as intriguing. Today's story, The Secret, was translated by Alexa Jeffries and comes to us in the voice of a dear friend, the sweet and hilarious Texan storyteller Sue Kuentz, of whom I will tell you more in the comments. Finally, I wanted to tell you that from the contest, The Literary Basket, we have some extra books to give away, but I will tell you more after the story. A pirate ship is captured by a spiraling whirlpool and dragged to an endless beach, where starfish are the only ones that leave footprints.
The Secret Written by María Luisa Bombal. Translated by Alexa Jeffress. Read by Sue Kuentz. I know many things that nobody knows. I know an infinite number of small and magical secrets about the sea, the earth, and the sky. This time, however, I will only share the secrets of the sea. Underwater, further than the deep and dense zone of darkness, the ocean illuminates again. A golden light springs up from the gigantic sponges, brilliant and yellow like suns. All kinds of plants and frozen beings live there, submerged in that glacial, eternal summer light. Green and red sea anemones squeezed together in wide fields intertwined with transparent jellyfish that have not yet broken their mooring to set out on their wandering destinies through the seas. Hard white corals tangle in the static brush where shadowy velvet fish slip by and gently open and close like flowers. I see seahorses, that is, tiny steeds of the sea, whose algae manes spread out in a slow halo around them as they silently gallop. And I know that if certain dull gray conchs manage to lift themselves up, they may find themselves under a weeping siren. And now I remember when, as kids, jumping from rock to rock, we halted our momentum at the unexpected brink of a narrow gorge in which the waves, upon leaving, left behind a long, royal blanket made of foam, an iridescent foam, obstinate to die and whispering, murmuring, something like a message. Did you understand the meaning of that message? I do not know. As for me, I must confess that I understood it. I understood that it was the secret of its noble origin that the dying foam was trying to whisper into our ears. Far, far away and deep down, it confided in us, there is a submarine volcano in constant eruption. Night and day, its crater tirelessly boils and blows thick bubbles of silvery lava toward the surface of the water. But the main point of these brief lines is to tell you about a strange, unknown event, also sunken to the depths of the earth. It's the story of a pirate ship that centuries ago swirled around, captured by a spiraling whirlpool, and that kept traveling beneath the sea among unknown currents and submerged reefs. Furious octopi gently embraced the mass as if to guide it, while the elusive starfish cheered, pulsing and sheltered in the hold. Arousing at the end of a long fainting spell, the pirate captain awoke his men in one single roar. He ordered them to raise the anchor. And the men, awakening from their stupor, ran to great lengths while the captain remained in his tower and no sooner glanced over the landscape when he began to curse. The ship had run aground in the sand of an endless beach that the calm, deep, greenish light of the moon bathed evenly. Oh, but it got even worse. No matter where he turned the binoculars around the ship, he could not find the sea. "Damn sea," he whispered. "Cursed tides driven by the devil himself. Blast them! Leaving us stranded on shore to come back and get us at who knows what unexpected and devilish hour." Livid, he turned his forehead and the scope upward, searching for the sky, the stars, the encampment from where the moon watched over with its vile radiance. But he did not find the sky, the stars, or any visible encampment. Satan! Everything above him seemed to be blind, deaf, and mute, as if it were exactly the inverted reflection of that demonic sandy desert where they had been run aground. And now, to top it off, this latest abnormality. The motionless, silent, lush black sails, the pride of the ship, were inflated along the width of the mast. And this was without the slightest gust of wind. "To land! Everyone, to land!" he could be heard thundering throughout the entire ship. "Bring daggers, life jackets, and examine the coast." With the plank quickly extended, a half-sleepwalking crew disembarked meekly. The captain was the last in line, firearm in hand. The sand beneath, sinking almost to their ankles, was fine, silky, and very cold. Two groups. One marches to the east, the other to the west. Both groups in search of the sea. The captain had ordered. But, "Halt!" he shouted, stopping the scattered trot of his men. "The boy stays here as watch relief. The others continue. Carry on!" The boy, a small child whose parents were honest fishermen, was wild for adventures and mischief and had escaped to embark on the Terrible, which was the name of the pirate ship, just like the name of the captain. He obeyed the order and backtracked with his forehead lowered as if he were observing and counting each of his steps. "Here comes the idiot, bow-legged turtle," the pirate scolds, once the boy is in front of him, so small, despite his 15 years, that he barely reaches the solid gold buckle of the captain's belt, splattered with blood. "Kids aboard," the captain suddenly thinks, overcome by a disagreeable, indefinable unease. "My captain," the boy says in a very soft voice, "have you realized that our feet don't leave prints in the sand? Or that the sails of my ship give shade?" the captain replies dryly and brutally. Then his anger seems to assuage before the naive, interrogating face that the boy insists on using to meet the captain's gaze. "Let's go, son," he mumbles, supporting his rough hand on the young boy's shoulder. "The sea will come." "Yes, sir," mutters the boy, as if to say, "Thank you." Thank you. The forbidden words. Better to burn one's lips first. Pirate's law. Did I say thank you? The boy asks himself, frightened. I called him son? The captain thinks, dumbfounded. My captain, the boy says again. During the shipwreck. Well, the pirate blinks and sharply straightens his stance. During the accident, I was in the hold. And when I get back on my feet, you know what? I find it full of the most disgusting creatures I've ever seen. What kind of creatures? Well, starfish, but alive. They're gross. They beat like the entrails of a freshly gutted human. And they moved from one side to the other looking for each other, jumbling together, and even tried to trap me. Ah! And you were scared? Eh? Quicker than an eel, I leapt to open the doors, portholes, and everything. And with kicks and smacks of the broom, I started to sweep them out. You should have seen how they ran along the sand all twisted up. But, my captain, I have to tell you something. And it's just that I noticed that they did leave footprints. The terrible does not answer. And side by side, they stand up straight under a weak green light that doesn't know how to twinkle before a silence so echoless, so complete that suddenly they begin to hear. They heard and felt inside of themselves the emergence and rise of an unknown wave. The wave of a feeling for which they cannot manage to find a name. A feeling 100 times more destructive than anger, hatred, or terror. An ordered, nocturnal, gnawing feeling. And the heart, patient and resigned, surrenders to it. Sadness, the boy finally murmurs without realizing it, a word whispered into his ear. And then, forcefully, trying to shake himself from that nightmare, the captain begins to seek comfort in his irritability again in shouting, "Young boy, that's enough. And let's speak frankly. With us, you learn to hit, stab, rob, and burn. But I've never heard you curse." A brief pause, and then, lowering his voice, the pirate asked sincerely, "Boy, tell me, you must know, where do you think we are?" "The same place you think, Captain," the young boy answers respectfully. "Well, 1,000 million feet below the sea, damn it!" the old pirate exploded in one of his famous thundering laughs, and then cut off suddenly. Because that which was intended to be a loud laugh resounded like a tremendous wail, a cry of affliction of someone who, inside their own chests, was usurping their laughter and feeling. It was the laughter of someone desperately longing for something that he knows to be irremissibly lost.
Very well, let's return from the depths of the sea where silence reigns and the water seems like an atmosphere. I wonder if the inspiration for Bombal's story came from some Mapuche legends where it is said that there are cities and towns lost under the earth, the sand, or under the waters of the sea. My mother once told me that the sea always gives back what it takes, although it may take some time. So we can assume that those pirates may one day return to the world of those who live on the surface of the earth. Without further ado, it's time to introduce today's voice. Sue Kuentz is a touring artist with the Texas Commission on the Arts. which is pretty cool because TCA will help pay up to half of her fees through their online grant application. Thank goodness storytelling found Sue Kuentz early in her career because she has a lot to say. Sue's storytelling passion and energy originated from her 32 years as an elementary school teacher and librarian in San Antonio, Texas. During the pandemic, she stayed busy on Zoom, telling stories to folks worldwide and sponsoring a youth storytelling club via the Mom and Family Public Library. She's elated to continue her storytelling live to share tales that affect the hearts and minds of all who listen. Sue excites and connects to family and adult audiences by taking them on journeys through her multicultural folktales, fairy tales, urban legends, and personal stories from around the world. So, to those who want to see Sue Kuentz in action telling stories, I'm going to be dropping the links to some of her videos and her website. Make sure to check her out. She is amazing. It is time for the announcements. And just so you know, the Literary Basket contest is closed, and I will be notifying the winners through an email. However, as I said at the beginning of the episode, we still have some books to give away to our listeners in the United States. So, on Monday, December the 6th, I will be sending an email to our subscribers with the image and description of the books we still have left. All you need to do to claim any of these books is to email us back to tres.cuentos.podcast@gmail.com, telling us which book you want and what you like best about the program. And no worries, I know it is a long email to remember, which is why I'm leaving it in the transcripts. And also, the first ones to claim a book will be the winners. It's just that simple. For example, the email you can send us may say, "Hello, I am Mary, and the book I want for my Christmas is," and then you tell us which of the books we listed you liked best. And then you say, "And what I like about Tres Cuentos is," and you tell us one or two things that you appreciate about the program. And voila, that's all there is to do. Very well, let's talk about today's author. This brief biographical review was written in collaboration with Leo Quirón. María Luisa Emilia Inés Bombal Aunt was born in Viña del Mar, Chile on June 18, 1910. After her father's death, Martín Bombal, Blanca the aunt, took her daughters to France. In Paris, María Luisa continued her studies, and at the age of 18, she entered the Sorbonne University, where she graduated in French literature with a thesis on the writer Prosper Mérimée. In 1931, Bombal returned to Chile and met Eulogio Sánchez, whom we mentioned in the introduction to the episode. A curious fact is that Bombal performed as a theater actress during that time, but soon decided that she had no future in that career. In Santiago de Chile, she connected with the intellectual circles of the city. She met important writers such as Marta Brunet, Pablo Neruda, and Julio Barrenechea. Her energetic, passionate, and free-spirited personality caused amazement and raised eyebrows in what was still a very traditional society. Keep in mind that it was expected that a woman would be submissive in those times and that her education would be oriented towards how to run the home, not towards science or art. But María Luisa was born to leave her mark, so much so that Pablo Neruda called her the fire bee. In 1933, María Luisa moved to Buenos Aires at the invitation of Neruda, perhaps to recover from her histrionic suicide attempt after the love affair with Sanchez failed. For the next 7 years, Bombal dedicated herself to writing. In 1935, she published her first novel, La Última Niebla, The Last Mist. 3 years later, she released her best-known novel, La Amortajada, The Shrouded Woman. Her literary career was on the right track, but when she decided to return to Chile, the old wounds of an unrequited love reemerged and threatened to cause her a setback. In 1941, María Luisa shot Eugenio Sánchez outside the Hotel Crillon. In 1944, after she spent time in jail, she left for the U.S. Restarting is not easy, and it is more difficult when you are away from the people and places you know. So, overwhelmed by loneliness, María Luisa took refuge in alcohol. But luckily, that same year, she met Ephraim de Sonfal, a French businessman whom she married. Later, she gave birth to her daughter Brigitte. Fully recovered from her addiction, Bombal returned to her literary works. In 1946, she published The Story of Maria Griselda and worked for UNESCO. After the death of her husband in 1969, María Luisa traveled to Buenos Aires and lived there until 1973. The following year, she returned to Chile, where she lived until her death on May 6, 1980. The literary work of María Luisa Bombal includes novels such as La Última Niebla, The Last Mist, which marked a turning point in Latin America's literature. It is important to notice that by 1935, Latin American novels were focused on criollismo or costumbrismo, two literary trends that sought to highlight prototypes of local geographical environments represented realistically. However, María Luisa's aesthetic style went against these literary currents and opposed patriarchal injustices. Her novel, La Amortajada, The Shrouded Woman, is a precursor of the narrative technique found in the famous short novel by the Mexican writer Juan Rulfo, that is, Pedro Páramo, published in 1955. Despite her undeniable contribution to literature, the name María Luisa Bombal is not widely recognized in Chile or elsewhere in Latin America. But the fire that poets like Neruda and readers like Manuel Peña saw in María Luisa persists in her narratives and reaches our senses like a hum that moves between time and oblivion. That's it for today. I will leave you with a few short lines from Bombal's famous novel, La Amortajada, The Shrouded Woman, translated by Armand Baker. I will leave the link to the translated novel in the transcripts. And after it had gone dark, her eyes opened, but just a little, very little. It was as if she wanted to look, while she was hidden behind her long eyelashes. At the flame of the tall candles that were lit up to watch on her, people leaned to observe the cleanness and transparency of the border of the eye that death had not been able to cast a pall over. Respectfully dazzled, they leaned over, not knowing that she was able to see them. Because in fact, she could both see and feel. And with these lines that could stand alone as a short story, we end today's program. I hope I have encouraged you to read Bombal's novel, La Amortajada, The Shrouded Woman. Finally, the last episode of the season on Fantastic Latin America will be A Christmas Tale, written by an author who has already been showcased in the program, Amado Nervo. Until the next cuento or story, adiós, adiós. Tres Cuentos podcast is produced with support from PRX and the Google Podcasts Creator Program. Tres Cuentos is an exercise of creative writing, researching, and retelling. Today's special thanks go to Alexa Jeffres, Don Heimel, and Leo Quirón. Remember that you can listen to Tres Cuentos in any podcast app: Google Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iVoox, or wherever you found us listed. Also check our website, www.trescuentos.com. Last, if you enjoyed the program, consider subscribing to our newsletter through our website and sharing the episodes with your friends. The music and sound effects were downloaded from the YouTube audio library and freesound.org. The list of credits per song can be found in the transcript. Thanks for listening. Adiós, adiós.